So, you want to know how to play Crusader Kings 3. I will show you. One of the first nations to play as, it's pretty easy, is the Petty King Murchad of Ireland. Very simple, very easy, so we'll start off there. So when you start up the game, this is what you're going to be presented with. You're going to have notifications up here on things that you're supposed to do. So one of the things you want to look at is, when you pick any ruler, is you want to look at their stats. What their ruler's good at and what they're bad at. So Murchad is a good warrior, but he's kind of an idiot and he doesn't know how to talk to people. Each of these stats each has their own effects. If you hover over it, it'll tell you a description of what each stat does. So for example, learning decreases the prestige cost to increase your crown authority, and other characters are more likely to accept demand conversion, which is when you want your vassals to swap out their religion for your religion. Intrigue, this is for doing the sneaky stuff, like murdering people, or abducting people, or fabricating a hook on people. Stewardship, this is your money maker. The higher your stewardship, the higher your domain limit, which is the amount of holdings you can have underneath your name, how many counties, these one area pieces of land, and how well you make money. Martial, like I said earlier, is for your military. The higher your martial skill, the higher the amount of levies you'll get, and how fast your levies will reinforce, which is when your troops might have taken some casualties due to war or attrition and they need to regenerate back to their number. Your martial skill will help increase that. And then lastly, you have your diplomacy. This is how well you are at generating prestige, swaying people, alliances, pretty much just overall interaction in between characters. And then one of the other things you want to look at is your personality traits. These give you different bonuses based on what they are. This is our education trait. You get this from when you're a child or your child becomes an adult, basically based on whoever trains them or whoever their guardian is. This pretty much gives us a boost to learning martial skills. And then anything after this education trait are usually skills that you learn along the way. It could be anything from becoming a poet, which is when that happened in the newer update, to learning a new skill for the combat. Like, for example, this is one of the newer skills, Winter Soldier, gives us a boost fighting in the winter, and that'll help us if we make Murchad commander of a military. He will apply this boost to that military. And then you can also look at your family. The only person we got as a son is him right here, one son, so he's our heir. When we die, we will end up playing as him. We also have siblings. You can see what titles we own. This is the land that we own. What we have claims on. Claim is basically saying that we have rightful ownership of a plot of land. Our claim is on the entire Kingdom of Ireland. You can check your court, who's in your court. These are all the people that you have direct interactions with. And we have one vassal. He's our, he's a mayor. Shows us how much dread we have. Dread's helpful, makes people afraid of us. They don't rebel. So we'll start looking at our notifications. If we are not married, you can just click right on that, and this will bring up a whole list of people who are eligible to be married to Murchad. So there's a few things you want to look for when you're trying to select a bride. One of the things you can look for is looking at her stats versus your stats. So since Murchad is kind of an idiot and he doesn't know how to talk to people, we could look for somebody who is high in diplomacy or high in learning, and we will get a nice chunk of their score added to our score. And one of the other things you can look for is alliance power. So if you, for example, if we wanted to get an alliance with the Duke of Normandy, we will end up having him as an ally, and we can call him to our side. You can look at what his military strength is by looking right here, how many levies he has. But one of the other things you want to look out for is you want to look to see if they're in a bad situation. Like, for example, he's in a war. So if we were to ally him right now, in about a month, he'll probably call us to war. And not really feeling a war right now, so we'll probably skip out on that one, so we can keep scrolling down. This is Bohemia, or, you know, modern day, the Czech Republic. So he's pretty strong. He's not at war with anybody. He also doesn't have any other alliances, so we could marry them, but then we're also marrying a child, so we won't get any bonuses until after they become an adult and actually move over. One of the other things you can look for if you want to make your dynasty a bunch of super soldiers is you can look for congenital traits. So if you wanted to breed like a super mutant, you could pretty much just focus on this if you wanted to. However, marrying a lowborn, which is somebody who doesn't have any land or any status, will give you a little bit of a penalty to prestige. We'll not worry about that right now. There we go. We'll marry the Welsh. They're not at war. They're close enough where we can have them help us. And yeah. Don't click this unless you want your children to be in the house of your wife. What that would do is could lead to an early game over, because if your heir dies and your heir is not of your dynasty, you won't be able to keep playing. One of the other things we want to look at before we unpause is our lifestyle choices. So Marshall is our main thing. You can see that he already has a bunch of the Overseer perks. If you wanted to swap that out, you could hit reset perks, but that will give you a lot of stress. I like to expand early, so what I tend to do is take the strategy focus, and I tend to walk down the strategist perk tree. That tends to help out a lot. And then another thing you want to look at is you want to look at who's on your council, and we'll just do a quick overview of all the council positions. So for your bishop, that's your your priest, well, your bishop. He starts off doing religious relations. That basically just gives you a flat piety boost and slowly increases your opinion with theocrats and him. If we had conquered land that's of a different faith, like if it's Catholic or Muslim, for example, you can use convert faith and county to change it to our religion. And then fabricating claims on county, that's how you primarily declare war in the 1066 start date. And then next up we have the counselor. This is who increases relations with people. You can have them either increase relations with people outside of your realm or internally. And then the last thing he can do is he integrates titles into your title. So say we have the Kingdom of Ireland, and then we conquer this county right here, Gwynedd. Well, Gwynedd's technically not part of the title of Ireland, because if you actually look right here, this is all that Ireland is. But if we had Gwynedd, we could actually integrate the title into the Kingdom of Ireland, and it'll actually end up becoming de jure territory, and basically it'll become ours. It'll indefinitely become part of the title of Irish Kingdom. Next up we have our steward. This is our money maker. He has also three things. Collecting taxes kind of makes sense. It just increases your income. Increasing development. This is really useful to do. I actually tend to have development increased on my capital, because that basically, the higher your development of your capital, basically just overall the better your city your area will be. So that'll increase tax revenue, levies, your supply limit. And lastly we have culture promoting. This will convert other provinces to our culture. We're already in Ireland, so everybody here is Irish. Don't really have to worry about that right now. Next up we have our marshal. This is our military guy, like our general, or our marshal. He has three options. Organizing the levies, which increases how many levies we have and how fast they regenerate. Then we have training commanders, which is pretty useful. It makes our men-at-arms cheaper, and it also makes our commanders and knights have a chance of developing new skills. So that's pretty useful. And then we have increasing control. So anytime you get raided or anytime you take new territory, the people who live there usually aren't going to be too happy. So you're going to want to put this guy on control, because if your control is too low, then you won't gain any benefits from the buildings or the gold. We have our spy master. This is for all of our sneaky stuff. Usually you just want to have them on disrupt schemes in the meantime when you're not doing anything. Basically prevents you from getting assassinated or bad things happening, basically. And then his next one is supporting schemes, which does, kind of like the opposite. If he's not defending the homeland, he's helping you attack somebody. And since Merchard's intrigue skills pretty crappy, you would probably want to have Spymaster help you out. And then lastly, we have Find Secrets. It's exactly what it says. It'll find secrets that you can then use to create hooks on people. A hook is basically something that you can use to get your way in an interaction. Alright, and that's about it on the what you do when you first boot up. I usually like to set this to 4, and then we can unpause. So next notification is that our heir is unmarried. It's good to, in the beginning, to have your heir married. Later on, when you get better at the game, I tend to just kind of not, because you never know who you might actually want to be your heir. You could, do a little sneaky stuff. Maybe you don't want him because his skills are trash or something. But for now, we'll just have him marry this person. Now, like I said, one of the first things I like to do is expand early. So we'll try and take over Desmond. If you look at his before you want to declare war on somebody, you want to look at their levies, see how they compare. So he has just 484 base troops and 4 knights. We have 998 troops. This will be pretty much an easy victory. So you just right-click on their name, you can declare war. It's going to cost 100 prestige, which we can definitely afford. And it'll even tell you how their military compares to ours, which shows that they are vastly inferior. So we'll declare war. And then you click this button right here to raise levies. You can change your commander if you want to. Like if you were to have, say you don't want to take any risks and you don't want your leader to be at risk of dying at all, you can swap them out for a different person. But since Merchard's actually good at battle, we'll do this. And you pretty much just highlight your troops and right click where they need to go. And it's pretty straightforward since we're just not dealing with any special troops. It'll just be an easy victory. And unfortunately, because the AI is dumb, he's just going to keep slamming into me until his army's gone like that. And because he has an actual castle here, and we don't have any siege equipment, it's going to take a lot longer than what it normally would take. Oh, look at that. First daughter. Dorothy. Alright, so now we won the war. And you click this shield right here, and then you can enforce your demands. And then you want to make sure you disband your military because it'll cost you money to keep it raised. And we ended up taking his mayor, so we can actually ransom the mayor for 30 gold. So one of the good things about daughters is you can find spouses to get more alliances if you need them. We don't really need to worry about it right now because we don't really need alliances to fight these tiny boys. Now, one of the other things you want to do, especially if you're going to be expanding into Conquest, is buying some men-at-arms. Now, these are basically like units that have they give you an advantage in combat. I usually like to start off with light footmen because they're basically just your regular units, but better. I believe the game considers your regular levies as skirmishers. So one of the other things you could also go for is bowmen, but we'll just do light footmen for now because they're cheap. It'll tell you how much it is for full maintenance. This is when it's like resupplying, and when you're using them. And then unraised maintenance is when they're not raised, so they're just hanging out at your town. When you need to move the rally point, because we're probably going to move on to Ossuary next, you just right-click right here. You click on it, and then you right-click to change the rally point. I'm going to fabricate a claim on Ossuary, and it'll just take some time. It's it's fun. In the meantime, while you wait for the claim, you can look at some of the decisions you can take If we're short on knights, where you check that in the martial tab, we aren't, you can invite knights. If you are looking for easy claims, you can invite claimants for a little bit of prestige, and then you'll then be able to declare war using their claims. It's kind of expensive, I don't usually do it too much, and you also never know where you're going to get the claim. A lot of times when you do it, you'll end up getting somebody who has a claim on, like, I don't know, a province in the Holy Roman Empire, and believe it or not, tiny little Munster right now ain't going to be able to take that. You can take a vow of poverty, which increases your piety but decreases your money. So, you know, you could also not. And we got our first skill point. Just put that in Bellum Justum, which lowers the cost of Casus Belli, which makes it so we use half the amount of prestige to declare a war than we normally would. The two that you'll most commonly be decisions you'll be taking are hosting a feast and calling a hunt. Calling a hunt lowers your stress, which is indicated right here, and it also gives you prestige. And hosting a feast increases your opinion of a lot of your vassals. This is very useful, especially when your empire gets bigger. And we have a son. Cool. And then lastly, you could search for a physician. This doesn't cost anything, but it does cost gold to hire the physician. It's good if in case you get wounded in battle or something.